All right. Well, what is up, everybody? It's Keith Jameson. Go back to guy to 31 across the DFS industry. We have another Saturday of massive college football and some massive implications now that we are in conference time. We have the massive shootout, which I'm sure I'll be talking a lot about. Alabama and Ole Miss with a 80 total right now, sitting on Friday morning. So that's nuts. We've been struggling to see the season too many totals over 60, and now to see one at 80. It's just crazy. So looking forward to talking about this one. Hopefully get us on some picks. Last week, I just wanted to just quickly go over last week. It was so crazy. It was like, what was it, like 230 or 245? I don't remember who I missed. Oh, it was Texas running back. It was Bijan Robinson, was like super, super high owned. And I chose to go Breece Hall. And, I'm sitting there, thought I was dead, but had Breece Hall, had Cunningham going. All of a sudden, check out my app at like 6 o'clock. I'm like, oh my God, I'm cashing everywhere. So quick reminder about college football is even if you have like a letdown or two early on, as long as like if the letdown was like super cheap, right? And you still have some studs going that have upside, especially running back quarterbacks with a running upside, you're never dead. So that was cool. Keep a 3-week cash game momentum going. So let's jump right into it and make it 4. So quick reminder, like, subscribe, and comment. If you're new to the channel, I'm going to be mainly going over some of just my top plays. There's so many plays in college football, right? I can't sit here and go over every single one of them. So if you do have questions on a play, I do get the feed to my phone on the YouTube comments. So just ask away. I'll do my best to answer. And, we are trying to be operating out on, hopefully like a cash lens. Although I think in college football, I was talking with somebody, a listener randomly messaged me on Twitter. So if you want to find me on Twitter at GatorGuy231, I do answer. Just asking, why, a lot of times they've looked at my lineups, I'm not on the chalk. And the reality is I think in college football, there's just so many ways to go, right? You can go sign up for projections on different sites and, get on like chalk plays, but, matchups every week change so much, right? There can be such talent disparity on the field. And just, it's one of the sports I think that you can really, really forge your own path, similar to NHL and NFL. I mean, you can forge your own path and still get on some fantastic plays that maybe just the consensus weren't on. So hopefully, because I don't read the consensus, I can give you guys some different leans here and explain why I'm on it. All right, so let's jump into the game. We'll start out We'll start out at quarterback. And just last thing, I know some of you like prize picks. I'm taping this early Friday morning. This probably won't be up till Friday night, but haven't had a chance to look at the board. I'll do my best on Saturday morning and to post it to my Twitter. If there's a play that stands out that I like, maybe we will have to see where they put my boy Adrian Martinez for the late game, because they never seem to respect him, and have done very, very well with Adrian Martinez props this year. All right, let's get into the games. At the top, Bryce Young, obviously going to be a great option for Bama. Anybody, let's just get out of the way, all right? Because I'm not going to cover every single player there, but anybody in the Ole Miss and Bama game that you like, if you have any good gut feel with it, just go for it. It's an 80 total. You can make cases for both sides, because as long as it's a passing attack for Ole Miss, you go, I don't really care if they get down. They're just going to be passing the ball a ton. And then if it's Bama, no matter if it's a run or pass, you go, if they're implied to score 40-something points for 40, what is that? If it's 14 and a half, that's like almost 50 points. What's my concern, right? So 10,000 Bryce Young looked awesome all season. If you want to give a detriment, it's that he's giving you no, rushing upside at all, which sucks. At 10,000, you really, really want to have rush upside. So that's probably the reason I pass on Bryce Young. But dude, 80 total, 14-point favorite. Like, of course the quarterback is in play. I probably prefer Malik Cunningham, who's also in a fantastic matchup versus Wake Forest, who can't play defense either. Malik Cunningham does offer you not only the upside of passing the ball, look at that, 38 and 39 the last 2 weeks. And hell, it kind of happens that Louisville isn't exactly great. Louisville is not that good. So this game could be really close. We saw it versus FSU, and then they kept it close versus UCF, but 39, 38 passing attempts, and then 14 and 13 rushing attempts. I still think he's going to break this 100-yard barrier here rushing wise. It's going to be huge if that same game he could throw 300 yards and running. You get both bonuses, Yahtzee, but look at that, 32, 29, 35, 36 DK. Yes, sign me up in Blake Cunningham. Matt Corral would probably be the other guy. I'm probably going to be on one of those two, Corral or Cunningham. I do think that quarterback after this top tier falls off quite a bit. There's a few guys to consider, but from a projection and from just like a floor standpoint, it drops significantly. Matt Corral is the other one. Look, you're going to get the rushing upside with him too. 12, 8, and 13 attempts in the first 3 games. Not as many passing attempts as Cunningham, but in large part because they haven't had to, because Ole Miss has been up so much. Still huge cannon of an arm, good on the ground, great system, right? We know from about last year, Ole Miss with Elijah Moore were just absolutely awesome. They still have great wide receivers. 59.2 DK last week. I didn't even realize that. 4 touchdowns on the ground. Wow. But it's Bama, right? That's the only detriment you can give against Matt Corral, right? It's Bama. And you just always have that concern when it's Bama about what the buzzsaw that you're running into. I think Dugan and that versus Texas is really intriguing for GPP. Nobody will be on him because of Corral's presence, but it's hard to get there. Same deal with Rattler. Yeah, shoot, I'm on my color code. I don't even have anybody else down here that I have, labeled, for subscribers. I have a player pool, and I, will give a blue label to my guys, like the guys that I'm planning to build around or that I am finding myself landing on and like wanting to click. Those are my guys. So, I don't really have anybody down here. I do think that MALIK at 7,300, watching Tennessee last week versus my Gators, I just did not think, I didn't leave impressed with Tennessee's defense at all. I thought Florida, by the end of the game, was just able to do whatever they wanted. So MALIK's throwing the ball a ton, does a little bit on the ground, not a ton, but 32, 51, 30, and 41 attempts for 7,300. I think that makes plenty of sense. And then just kind of a punt down here. I think that JARRET DOEGE is a little intriguing versus Texas Tech if this game shoots out. I'm obsessed with LEDDIE Brown. He's on the cover. We're going to go over him in a minute. But, DOEGE, bad game last week versus OU. But before that, he's throwing the ball a little bit. If we can get a 300-yard bonus, if we can get 2 or 3 TDs at 6,200, he could pay off. But it drops off significantly at the top tier, like I mentioned. So let's plan to try to get up there. At running back, Bijan Robinson's fine. I'm not going to go there versus TCU. I think Tyler Batty, after watching the Gators run all over the Vols, I think makes a ton of sense. What I especially like about Tyler Batty is just how in the passing game he is for a running back. So we get touchdown equity on the ground, and then we get few catches there too. So that gives him a really nice floor. Look at those game logs. Absolutely impressive. 8,200 is expensive, but I think could be worth it. Just kind of flip back to my list. So I wanted to make sure Batty, DESMOND, 7,200 versus OU. Look, OU's defense looked a little bit better versus West Virginia, but this is on the road for them. This should be a close game. DESMOND's been great all season, no less than 20 DK. Much like Batty, he's going to give you some upside in the passing game in addition to the run game. First time he did not hit over 100 yards on the ground versus at Oklahoma State last week, but still got to 20 DK. So you do like that floor there. My dude, though, this week is LEDDIE Brown, 6,900 at home versus Texas Tech. Texas Tech, we've seen just get run all over. LEDDIE Brown, disappointing game versus OU, but coming off the monster versus Virginia Tech with 31.6 DK. Again, getting a lot more involved in the passing game this year. I just think at 6,900, he's just far too cheap. So LEDDIE Brown, by far and away, will be 100% owned for me. I will ride or die with LEDDIE Brown this week. Hope you do too, so we can all be rooting for him. So I love LEDDIE Brown. I also love Henderson from Ohio State. Look, we're 2 games removed, or 1 game removed from the absolute enormous breakout versus Tulsa, where he went 24 for 277. I think he has taken that running back room. It's always going to be a split, right? They just have so much talent there. But 6,600, this could be one of the last times that we get a sub 7,000 Henderson. He's just explosive. He didn't get a ton of work versus Akron last week because it just wasn't needed. But, I think the talent is there. Even just looking at the blurb from RotoWire, again, I do rely a lot on this because there's so many teams in college. You can see there, was the clear starter at the beginning of the game, then conceded some time again because of the blowout. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And a guy at the price, I just love in that mid tier. So like building around Brown and Henderson. We'll go over some receiver values, can get you up to the top end. I love that this week. I do also think it's going to be a 3 running back week. There's some guys here that we'll go to that have some really nice upside in the mid tier. And speaking of that, let's get there. So I think Jalen Mitchell, I remember watching the game versus UCF, left super, super impressed with Jalen Mitchell. Struggled versus FSU last week, but he's the clear #1 back for Louisville and a plus matchup versus Wake Forest. So, you know, Jalen Mitchell is going to give us 14, 15 carries, gets a little involved in the passing game, but does get goal line too. So really, really impressive player. 5,100, I think, is a really good price on him. And then just under him, it's not like the cleanest matchup ever at home versus Cincinnati, but KYREN Williams is a guy the last few weeks we've been paying 7,000 plus for. And now all of a sudden we dropped to 5,000. I just think it's a bet on talent more than bet on matchup. You know, he struggled versus Wisconsin, but I think that was always meant to be seen. It stunk that he didn't get involved in the passing game at all. Back at home, must win for Notre Dame and versus a really, really feisty Cincinnati team, which actually I want to go back to at quarterback too in a minute. But I think, again, just a bet on talent for KYREN Williams at 5,000. I like a lot, especially in like a cash game setting. I do feel like I need to go back real quick to one quarterback that I forgot to label correctly. I think that Desmond Ridder is very, very much in the conversation in cash this week because of the dual threat ability. He didn't really have to run much versus in the first two games versus Indiana last week. We saw run a lot more, 10 for 45, got in the box, also going to throw 25, 30 times. This game could be sneaky decent versus Notre Dame, who hasn't had a good defense all season. So Desmond Ridder, 7,500, absolutely in the conversation at quarterback. Finally, let's go over to wide receiver. Look, if you have the money, there is no better pay up at the wide receiver position in college football than Drake London. So 12, 13, 10 catches. USC just does not have a running game anymore. They're just going to throw the ball all over the pitch, especially versus Colorado. So Drake London, to me, is a standout #1 wide receiver on the slate. But it's just, can you get there? And, you know, a big reason, can you get there? Oh, sorry, I'm bouncing. I'm doing this before 7 a.m. So this is what you get before 7 a.m. But from Alabama, where's McClellan? I do really feel like I should have mentioned Chase McClellan. Look, versus Florida, I thought he was like one of the best players on the field. He's not the #1 wide running back, but I think he's one of Bama's most explosive players, 5,900. This is a game that's going to have tons of scoring. I think Chase McClellan can just get loose once or twice and have a big game at 5,900. So really like him from a tournament perspective. Sorry for the itch. All right. So here's where we're going to find a ton of these Alabama Ole Miss wide receivers, and all of them are in play. Jameson Williams is probably my favorite. I just think he's phenomenal. But if you went Drummond, 7,500, let's just focus solely on this game real quick. Let me just change this filter. All right, so Drummond, Mechie, I think will go really low owned if you want to bet on talent. Mingo, I don't know much about Latu. Yeah, it doesn't really look like much of a play there. I think the guy here that I think is really interesting is Billingsley, the starting tight end for Bama. Finally started looking good last week, 5 for 105. He's going to play a lot. 3,600 gives you a punt, especially in the red zone. We know that Bama likes to use those tight ends in the red zone. So I think Billingsley is really interesting. All right. So all those, I'm not going to go back over them, but let's just suffice it to say, any wide receiver from Bama and Miss that you like, go for it and play. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I think Olive and Garrett Wilson are both really good spots versus Rutgers. You know, what I've been doing with them is whoever the cheapest is. Garrett Wilson all season has been criminally underpriced. He's finally caught up. But I think, you know, that passing attack is so condensed to those two plus Smith. I can't say his name right. Najigba. Let's see if I'm even close. Najigba. Ohio State fans comment on how terribly I messed that up. And if I got it right, just congratulate me. But Wilson, Olive, and Smith, I think are all in play there. Yeah, I like them all quite a bit. Let's see down here. I thought Worthy was interesting from Texas. He showed up big last week, 5 for 100, 3 touchdowns. So 6,200, I think, is a fair price for their Texas is weird. They kind of spread it all around, but you know, consider him your either number 1 or 2. Let's see. Let me go back to my list here. All right, at 5,200, I did want to bring up Kiki Chisholm. Getting a ton of look from Missouri, who is very open. And again, I told you, like, from what I could see from UF, we could do anything that we wanted versus Tennessee last week. So 12 catches in the last 2 games for Chisholm, I think makes a nice little cash play at 5,200. The guy I really am home. I also do like Sam James. When West Virginia does throw the ball, Sam James is one of their top targets. So at 5,000, I think he makes a ton of sense. I love Marvin Mims. I think he's overdue for a huge breakout. Look, we're looking at a guy, 2nd team preseason All-America, 8,300 to start the season out. We're now at 4,800 after some bad performances. Look, sometimes you just have to bet on talent and, you know, get past game scripts. He's still playing a ton, changed the roles, playing a lot more in slot this year. I kind of watched an interview with him. He was so supportive of the coaching staff. He's not like taking shots at anybody because he's struggling. Look for him to break out here. So 4,800, I'm just going to bet on talent with Marvin Mims. I do love the play. Also Marshawn Ford, with Louisville losing, and I think it's Braden Smith is now out for the season. Marshawn Ford is going to be the number 1 target right now for Cunningham. He has 14 catches the last 2 games. This is a game that's going to have some points. So 4,700 is a really good price and kind of fits. As you can see, I'm kind of showing you builds to fit the whole pay up at quarterback, get some stud running backs, and then maybe get 1 or 2 stud wide receivers, and then get some cheap guys. So that's what I'm trying to kind of outline here for you. So Mims, Ford, and then I think I have one more I want to bring up here. Yeah, Mitchell at 4,100. Look, just kind of looking through and reading some local stuff. I don't think this game has a lot of points. I'll just throw that out there. Arkansas versus Georgia. It could be a slug. I saw it's a showdown game. It's actually the only like featured showdown I'm not covering just because I don't feel like I know Georgia enough right now, but he's coming on. Supposedly he broke out in the spring game. Georgia's wide receiver room is banged up. So Donnie Mitchell at 4,100, I think, is a really good, potentially contrarian play. But it's cheap. At 4,100, like last week, I think I took a 0 for 3,600, or was the week before, and then another like 2 DK at 4,000. You can recover from it. It's all, college football to me is so much more about construction and what you get at the top end. Some of these guys break out so much that just finding some decent value plays to make it work can often lead you to cash, especially in cash games where mistakes can be made. All right. Hope that this helps. Should be a fun week. I'm very much looking forward to this Saturday's games, just sitting on the couch and enjoying the action. So good luck. Again, if you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and comment. It all really does help us continue to grow this channel, almost to 3,000. So if you've been watching these college football videos for a while, haven't subscribed, do that now. It's really appreciated. All right. Have a good Saturday. With that, I'll say, see you.